Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Committee of the Whole for Monday, May 16th, 2022 to order. First off, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, let's move to approval of the agenda. Councillor Dunsel. All right, I have moved by Councillor Dunsel, second by Councillor Cadwell, resolved that the May 16th, 2022 Committee of the Whole agenda be approved. All in favor? That's carried. All right, now we move to adoption of the previous minutes. We have the DIA, the Art Gallery Board, and the Museum Board. Need a mover. Moved by Councillor Sharp, second by Councillor Frake. Moved by Councillor Sharp, second by Councillor Frake. Resolved that the Grimsby DIA meeting minutes of April 13th, Grimsby Art Gallery Board minutes April 14th, and Grimsby Museum Board minutes of May 4th be received. All in favor? That's carried. All right, now we move to our delegation, Connecting Grimsby from Rob Blum. Good evening, Rob. You can go up to the podium.
Bottom right. Yeah. You can see me, I guess. Perfect. And I have 10 minutes, right? That's correct?
Yeah, you're good to go.
Good to go now? So I'm here today with a proposition for an idea that has been 7 years in the making. And this 7-year plan has been, idea has gone through a number of processes that pertain to the Grimsby Council. And I want to bring forth this idea, especially first to introduce myself. I'll be really quick. My name is Robert Peter Blom, and now it's disappeared. That's okay, Peter. I can tell everyone but myself, I already know who I am. So I'm a PhD candidate at the Brock University for Educational Metaphysics. I've run an intentional community for mindfulness. I have a background in mathematical physics. I have training in thinking of mathematics, ecological, philosophical, and metaphysical. I'm also interested in permaculture. I've done a lot of work in, not philanthropy, but philosophy and philosophical living. I'm very interested in doing volunteer work, and I think most importantly, though, I'm a concerned citizen. That's why I'm here. That's why I want to bring together all of us and in a way that's just non-political. I'm here with an idea, not here. This idea that I've had for the trail rail corridor has nothing to do with the left or the right. It's here as a concerned citizen. Can we change the slide, please, Peter? So the deputation here is that Grimsby is in need of a multi-use trail that meaningfully connects the town on an east-west axis. Coming from a Dutch background, we always used to bike in Amsterdam area, and I had my original idea of a trail along the corridor of the rail because it gives safe access to people within the ages of 8 to 80, which of course is a meaningful Grimsby process that we need to follow and think about. I witnessed in the last 30 years very dangerous trails in Grimsby. People would just not bike safely. The trails that we do have in Grimsby right now is not safe, unfortunately. I was inspired 7 years ago to actually have my mom start to bike because she biked for 35 years in Holland, immigrated here, and never biked again. Because this is a car-centric community, and that's fine. This is a car-centric community. We live in Canada. However, there are possibilities to make this much more safe in terms of integration. So I want to quickly show you that I've done my work 7 years ago. I actually reached out single-handedly as a concerned citizen to CN. People told me on the GAP board and other areas that CN refuses to talk to people at a municipal level. It didn't bother me. I actually sent written letters and emails to representatives of CN, and they actually came to Grimsby 6 or 7 years ago to talk to then Regional Councillor Tony Quirk And Tony Quirk also didn't think they would lead anywhere, but those actually were very positive and productive. They outlined what was feasible for them, what was allowed, what they could do in terms of an engineering basis, and they're basically waiting for us to say, we are serious. And that was a problem. So the problem was that it started at GAT. Can we go one more? It started at GAT, and GAT was a primary supporter of my idea 7 years ago, and the entire GAT board was actually in support. They endorsed it as well. Of course, GAT didn't have any political power in Grimsby Town Council, which was why at the time we tried to get a subcommittee, which was now formed at the subcommittee level, which took many years. We had to wait then for the Master Trails Plan, which then got canceled and renewed with the new board in 2018. So more years have gone by. Finally, in 2022, we now have Master Trails Plan, and unfortunately the proposed trail was inserted last minute, and it was not actually endorsed by SEMA just recently. Now, anytime I talk about this trail to anyone, including members of the council here, it's always been a very enthusiastic response, which I'm very happy to hear. I have provided some email correspondences during the election year of 2018 in the next few slides. This is just a small fraction of the responses I got. Can we go quickly through them? So this is from Reg Frake, and Reg says, "Hi Rob, thanks for the email and overview of the innovative idea for the bike traffic." And you guys know what you wrote. This is just a reminder of what we actually wrote. So as a citizen, I asked, are you guys interested in connecting east and west from Smith School, from Bartlett, in a safe corridor? And every single email response I got, can you just go through them? So John as well, I'm meeting with Tony tomorrow, I'll ask him about this. Aliane Vardy, I think it's a great idea. Keep going, please. Dave Sharp also was endorsing my plan. Dorothy Bothwell had a wonderful reply, large paragraphs, which I really appreciated, the intentionality behind her response. So again, my main concern as a citizen is that this has taken over 7 years, and I don't think good ideas should fall because of this law of attrition that we're having. So the only reason that this has survived so long is because of my own individual efforts. And I've been very outspoken that this shouldn't be about me. My idea, of course, started with my own mind, but I wanted to give it to GAT or give it to Grimsby and let it take a life of its own. And yet still I'm here fighting for the idea 7 years later, and I think that's very, very sad. It shouldn't take this long for good ideas to manifest, especially because the legwork has already been done. So the 7-year process, as I said, has been my idea, led to GAT, Trails Master Plan was created, then the subcommittee was formed, a new master plan was created, and now SEMA is taking a look at it. And in their document they released a few weeks ago, they did not endorse the trail. And the issue with that is they didn't give any reason why they didn't endorse the trail. That's the main problem. Was it financial? Was it feasible? Was it a lack of communication or lack of time that they could because they had it late notice? I don't know, and I hope you guys can find out. Yes?
What is SEMA?
SEMA is the engineering firm that is taking control of the master plan, doing the feasibility study. Now, in the meeting before, I talked to SEMA in the first public inquiry, and I asked them if their approach was systematic or systemic. And they knew what those meant. Systematic is approaching ideas, seeing one problem and having one solution. Systemic is seeing multiple problems and having one solution. So what I see is this trail is that when you have this one trail connect east and west, every single other trail that GAT has investigated connects to this one trail. So rather than seen as branches, I see it as a spine. And this spine, if created, will actually endorse further movement towards integrating more trails in Grimsby. That's why I think it's so important. And again, safety is the biggest thing. If you build on roads, which is what SEMA has done in their endorsement that we looked at the library, everything is mostly along roads, which again, people won't use. We've seen that for the last 30 years. Can we go by? So this was actually one of the members of the subcommittee, Jimmy. He actually made this chart for me, and we looked at the qualifiers that SEMA themselves used in their process. How much time do I have, Peter?
3 minutes, please.
Thank you. So we want to use their language because again, we don't want to be political. We want to use the language that they inquire about. So we pieced together all the qualifying statements. And as you can see, the trail rail, or the rail trail that Jimmy said on the left, pretty much hits every single check mark in terms of the quality of the actual trail, except for the historical one, which of course it isn't. It's not going to be a historical trail. Of course, these are all the other trails that were proposed, and again, the closest one is the Centennial Park mid-trail, but none of them really are integrated. That's why I highlighted it green. None of them actually integrate all the other trails, except for the rail trail system. Can we go on? Yeah. So I really want to talk about the product versus the process. Again, in educational philosophy, I look at this a lot. And we basically abide by a single process, and we expect the product to come by that process, as opposed to recognizing that the product is actually meant to, we want to find the product of the process. That's what I want to say. So there are many processes. I've actually wanted to come here 7 years ago, and I was told to wait. 7 years ago. I was told to wait 6 years ago because I had to follow the process. I followed the process now, and the process didn't work. So, and as I was talking to Brian, who's actually a member also of Grimsby, he's the lovely photographer, he talked about attrition. Good ideas just suffer because it takes too long to to enact, and then the people that started them go away, and then it gets forgotten, right? And we already talked a little bit about systematic versus systemic. SEMA, when I asked, they were actually in favor of systemic, and they actually wanted the town to pick which approach they wanted to do. And yet they themselves took away the possibility of that trail, which I find very problematic, because it should be up to the town council to decide which proposal they want. Even if it's a small possibility, it should still go into the report from SEMA. This is my belief. Because it should be up to you guys to say, oh, we want to know more about that. Oh, there's a 1% probability of it working, then we won't include it. But then that should be a decision from you guys, not premeditated from them. I also want to finish on the vision, which is, of course, our coat of arms. Make Grimsby flourish in the middle of the garden, which I find very ironic because we're actually lacking the middle part. We're actually lacking the middle axis for the active and regional and recreational transportation. If we had that, Grimsby would certainly flourish, because we could connect the left, the east, and the west into the downtown. We could connect the new school. We could connect different new apartment buildings that are going up. We could also connect to the center where all the food is, and everyone could get there safely on a bike or walking or whatever they want to do. In terms of feasibility, I have talked already with previous members of this committee, and they have said that funding shouldn't be a problem, but again, it's up to you guys to figure out, not SEMA, right? And I know there's regional funding, I know there's provincial funding, I know there's municipal funding, but again, I'm not an expert in politics, I'm just here with the idea. And I think that is it, other than questions. I just really want to bring this to light again, because I think it's a wonderful idea, and I think it can really transform Grimsby into a leader. And this, once we do it here, Beansville will follow, St. Catharines will follow, Niagara Falls will follow, and we can set the precedence for the region. That was time? Great.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Rob, and thank you for your tenacity on following this through for 7 years. I think it has, in my opinion, great potential. I think that there is space there, and I'm glad to hear that you have been able to get somewhere with CN, because that was, whether it was a perceived hurdle by the general public and perhaps council, the fact that you have been able to discuss with them and move forward with them, I think is... And
they came down and had an interview with Tony, and they went around for 3 hours around Grimsby saying this is possible.
That's really good to hear, because I have heard that they can be difficult, but that's one important step, because East-West Trail is something that is badly needed in Grimsby, and I feel that. So thank you very much for your presentation. Questions from council? Councillor Vardy.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Do you have any idea of the cost?
I do not. However, what I will say is that there was, if you look at the town map on the right-hand side, so the east, there's a huge previous dug-out area, which you could just slap on a multi-use trail very, very easily. So the cost, at least on the east end, should be very minimal. The cost on the west end would be a little bit more, because you'd have to take down a little bit of trees and make a multi-use trail and worry about, that's the CN land, and have negotiations and things like that. But in terms of feasibility, especially for the east end, it's very simple. That would be, I think, north of the tracks, but it's been a while since I looked at the map.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Frick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do thank you for the presentation. I do remember being in touch with you, and I commend you for your patience and focus and continue to pursue this. It's fantastic, and I think it's a great idea. And I probably said that when I first spoke to you. And I know there was another gentleman that contacted me in the early stages of this council that also had a similar idea, and he had. I'm not sure if I forget who it was. You may know him. He may be part of your committee. But you're looking at only the Grimsby piece, are you, or? Okay, it makes sense. So, I mean, because the rail tracks go so farther east and west, I mean, is there any committee or anyone on either side of Grimsby that is pursuing this from like Beamsville or Lincoln or?
So all I can say is that Tony Quirk has been quite excellent in terms of representing myself at the region,
Right.
and he was going forward with that, having talks with other municipalities. But as far as that, I don't know. But according to him, everything was positive, extremely positive all the time. And I think Grimsby is the one that set the precedence.
Okay,
Yeah. But that's, again, your decision. Yeah.
Have you been talking to anybody at the region?
I have not, because I don't see myself as a public official of Grimsby, a public spokesman. So I talk to people like yourself, like Tony, like other individuals to do that work.
There is a committee that falls under the Transportation Committee.
Yes,
That is already investigating these types of programs?
The-
Bicycle trails along various pieces of the Niagara region, and I'll
Yeah.
bring it forward to them, but I mean, I think it would be an idea if you probably spoke to them as well.
So again, for 7 years, I've been speaking to different committees, including GATT, which
Okay.
endorsed, and
Frustrating.
then I talked. It's not so much frustrating, but it has to work, right? If the process is meant to work, right? So I talked to the subcommittee. We had to wait for GATT to become an official subcommittee. I had a presentation with them. They all loved it, and then it just sort of waits for the trail master plan. And then as for Pat Maloney, who was the leader of GATT at that time, he talked about it with everyone wherever you went. So again, I tried to let the ball roll in other people's.
Have you interacted with anyone here in Grimsby staff or?
Dave Sharp in particular, I know him quite well.
No, on staff, not on council.
Oh, sorry. The only person I talked to, again, 7 years ago was Sarah Sweeney.
And is Sarah by any chance on the line somewhere? Are you here, Sarah? Trevor?
I believe Sarah's here. Hi, Sarah.
I am here.
Hi, Sarah. I'm sure you listened to the presentation, and I know you've had some dealings with this in the past. Can you shed any light on if we've done anything so far on this? Because I think it's a great idea. I mean, I don't know if it's feasible, but it's a great idea.
Through you, Mayor Jordan, I'd be happy to provide a bit of a response, and we do have one with SEMA as well. I'm not prepared to do that right at this moment, to be honest. I wasn't expecting this, so I'd be happy to follow up with that with all of you.
Would really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I will just say there is some content about this on our Let's Talk Grimsby page right now as part of the Trails Plan, so certainly you'll find some content there, but I can also make sure that you get it directly as well, so you have that information.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Sarah. And thank you very much for your presentation. Let's see if we can take this somewhere.
Yeah, that's what I want, right? Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Councillor Bothwell? And then I have Councillor Dunstall.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. I think Director Sweeney answered some of my questions. I just wondered how the next steps were with if they were going to bring those Mr. Bloom's suggestions forward as part of the public input. And then I just wondered if there was any consideration of the DeFasco Trail east-west connection, if the presenter could let me know if that was even an option he considered.
I'm sorry. So that's also been a consideration for sure, but it doesn't really get us into the middle of Grimsby from east and west. So that's been my primary focus, almost like a laser focus. I haven't really concerned myself with other trails other than trying to connect all of them, really. And that would have also included the DeFasco Trail. So I know of it. It's been talked about many times, yeah, but I haven't pursued it.
I just thought that they were a little further ahead because they were talking about actually linking to 50 Point Conservation Area. And so there was some talk on their website about that. So I don't know. I just wondered if that was an option. for East-West as well. But thank you for your presentation, much appreciated. And I think any way to help move it forward would be good if it's possible. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
Councillor Dunstall.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to Rob. Great presentation, great ideas. I wanted to suggest, since Councillor Frake was heading in that direction, we put a motion on the floor to send this back to staff, this report or presentation that Rob has given us, so that they can get back to us and let us know what the feasibilities are to doing something like this. And I think Director Sweeney was kind of leaning that way. She doesn't have time to give us good answers right now, but if we could send it back to staff to do some kind of a report. So I'd like to put a motion on the floor for that.
Councillor. All right, we have a mover and a seconder, and it looks like
Thank you.
our clerk is preparing one right now. So. Moved by Councillor Dunstall, second by Councillor Vardy. Resolved that delegation from Rob Bloom be referred back to staff for a report at a future meeting. Recorded vote has been requested. Any discussion? Seeing none, Peter will read the...
Councillor Bothwell?
Yes.
Councillor Dunstall?
Yes. Yes.
Councillor Frake?
Yes.
Councillor Cadwell?
Yes.
Councillor Ritchie?
Yes.
Councillor Sharp?
Yes.
Councillor Vane?
Yes.
Councillor Vardy?
Yes.
Mayor Jordan?
Yes.
That is carried.
All right, seeing no further questions, thank you very much again for your presentation, Rob, and you have a good evening. Nice to see someone in person for a delegation. And we just have the receiving of the delegation, moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor Vardy. Resolved that the delegation from Rob Bloom be received. All in favor? That's carried. All right, now we move to the consent agenda. Peter, you have a resolution? Councillor Bothwell.
Mayor, if I could please lift 7.1B and 7.4A.
I don't like
All
to
right.
do this, but can I call point of order on 7.1B? I don't know if it's appropriate or not, but I think we've talked about this till the cows have come home. It's this report is going back to a year ago, and it's been concluded. I can't see the relevance or the validity in having any more discussion on this. It's in the consent agenda, so I don't see the relevance.
Mayor, I would ask the clerk to confirm if it's been raised to be lifted, if there can be any discussion or argument on that.
Through you, Mayor, it is on the agenda, on the consent agenda, but it may be lifted by any member of council.
Without a
All right.
vote or without a vote, correct?
Without a
Peter?
vote, yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Bothwell, it was 7.1B, and the other one was?
7.4A.
All right, 7.4. All right, those have been lifted, so we just need a mover and seconder for the remainder of the consent agenda. Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor Dunstall. Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor Dunstall. Resolved that the Committee of the Whole hereby approves the following items and that the various consent items be approved on the recommendation as contained therein. Report FIN.
Mayor Jordan, sorry to cut you off. Can we lift also?
I'm reading. Well, what do you want to lift? Okay. You need to do it in a timely manner. When I'm partway through reading, you had plenty of time, but what would you like to lift, Councillor Sharp?
My apologies. 7.1B, is that on the list yet?
That's already been lifted by Councillor Bothwell.
Yeah, thank you.
Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor Dunstall. Resolved that the Committee of the Whole hereby approves the following items and that the various consent items be approved on the recommendation as contained therein. Report FIN 22-12, 2021 tax write-offs. Report DRS 22-11, happening in Grimsby 2022 road closure and municipal significance for alcohol. Just to there. All right. All in favor? That's carried. All right. Now we're moving to, I had the lifted item 7.1B. Councillor Bothwell, would you like to speak first, or is there, we'll generate a speakers list if you don't want to speak first.
If there's anyone else, I'll let them go first.
All right. Well, I don't see anyone, so Councillor Bothwell, it looks like you're up.
Councillor Sharp, did he not want to speak to this as well? He wanted to lift.
Point of order, Mayor Jordan. You shouldn't be telling or directing other councillors to go first. Whoever lifted it, please speak or not speak. We shouldn't be directing who is speaking first or not. Thank you.
Well, since
Mayor Jordan, we as councillors should not be directing anyone on when or where to speak.
Mayor, I'm prepared to speak to the item.
Thank you, Councillor Bothwell.
So,
go ahead.
Thank you very much. As Councillor Dunstall said, yes, we have talked about this item, which is the bank signing authorities dating back to March 31st, 2021, until the cows came home. And the resolution that council passed at the last meeting to try to bring closure to it appears not to have been resolved. The request to have the bank actually confirm whether the council resolutions and the corporate resolutions had been enacted properly, and whether the CAO had actually the claim of the workaround where the bank permitted two staff members to make changes to the banking signing authorities without a valid council resolution has not been resolved in the May 9th, 2022 bank letter that we received in this report. The bank letter, basically written by the account manager, Jamie Giles, is verbatim what staff, I think, requested that they put in the letter, because as per the motion, there is no answer to the questions in the resolution. There is no confirmation that the CAO had the conversation regarding the workaround in order to enact the signing authorities. He did without a council resolution, which actually didn't take place until April the 26th. There is no, the bank didn't confirm that any of the council resolutions were done with due diligence. And in fact, I believe they said that their role is only to take what they were given in good faith on the TD council resolution. So we're back to a position where the Ombudsman's report says they cannot verify that the CAO acted properly with respect to the workaround because they couldn't confirm it with the bank. And the bank didn't confirm it in this letter. So we're back in the position where I think there's still a bit of an issue as to whether those authorities were enacted properly. And unfortunately, my previous motion to have Grant Thornton, who is an auditor, actually investigate whether the Municipal Act was followed in this matter was turned down May 17th, 2021, roughly around there when it was initially presented. And that a number of councillors just don't want to delve into this to ensure transparency and accountability under the Financial Act. So We're leaving with this report today with a number of issues that are still unanswered, and whether, in fact, the enactment at the bank was done within the proper legal framework of the Municipal Act and within the Financial Institutions Act, et cetera. So I'll leave it at that. I don't feel this answered the motion that was presented to staff by council. And I think that we still have some serious issues with respect to the retroactivity of the bylaw being put in place 4 weeks after the action was taken, with no communication to council by the CAO until it was actually brought forward that there was an issue with the signing authorities. So I would hope that when we get to auditing the budget for this year and Grant Thornton does look at the municipal processes in place and the checks and balances and the delegation instruments, that they at that time do review this action as part of their annual review to ensure that all of our actions are done in a transparent and compliant manner. Thank you.
Councillor Vane.
Contrary to a comment about council not wanting to delve into this, I personally am satisfied that the CAO acted responsibly and did what was necessary to keep the town running. I'm sure, like many things we've done through this council, as Councillor Frake himself had said, that we are new, we've done the best we can, and I think we've done very well. This town has come very far under this council. So I don't know quite what ultimately the council is looking for. Is it to reprimand the CAO? Go ahead. I won't support it. I think that he did the responsible thing. Staff got paid. We didn't end up with lawsuits or other things because our staff didn't get paid because we did whatever. As far as I'm concerned, we did the best thing we could in the situation. Kudos to the CAO for stepping up and taking charge. And I'm not going to support anything other than letting this go, like Councillor Dunstall suggested. Thank you.
I have Councillor Sharp up next and Councillor Vardy.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Jordan, and through the mayor. I'd like to ask a question. Councillor Bothwell, are we after the bank for allowing the signing, or are we after our staff for signing? Because I'm pretty sure the policies of the bank. So if I go into the bank and try and sign for someone else's money, the bank has a policy that says no, only the people who put the money in there can sign. And so it seems like you might be, I mean, you mentioned the manager of the branch by name. Are you after the bank for allowing this? Because the bank allowed this. Right? We went in and signed, and they said that and the bank said that was okay. And they're saying right here that they are satisfied. This is a word the bank used. I'll quote, it's in quotations. The bank is satisfied that the appropriate delegations and resolutions, both council and corporate, are in place for the period of March 31st to April 5th, 2021. I confirm that TD was provided with the enclosed corporate resolution, including on March 31st till April 5th. Should you have any questions? Oh, it says, which was relied on by the bank in good faith. And so the bank relies on us. The bank, it's like, for example, I made this comparison last time. I don't want to make comparison, but if I go in to withdraw money from my wife's account and they allow me to do it, and I'm not my wife, right? Or if I call my wife's bank and they say, we need your information to prove who you are, but I know her birth date and I know her address, and I'm able to make like a minor change to the account, like via telephone banking, and they allow that because even though I have a voice that sounds like a man, I know the 4-digit PIN and I know the address and the postal code, and banks sometimes do that, and it's, in my opinion, the bank's policy who gets to sign. And so they need 2 signing officers, and they allowed this in good faith. And I think that this is like Councillor Bothwell, this is my opinion. I think that she's after, this is a witch hunt. And Councillor Bothwell, that is my opinion. And you talk about the auditing of these statements. Will you be here when the statements will be audited? Because it's my opinion that you're leaving your post before any of this will happen. So, I mean, I thank you for rubbing everybody's nose in a mistake that we made to make sure that the people got paid at our town staff. But I ask you to stand down. The bank says that they're satisfied. Everybody got paid. We've gone through with our treasurer. There is no wrongdoing here. And so please stop, Councillor. This is my opinion. I'm asking you as a professional, as your colleague, just cut it out. Thanks. Or Jordan, thank you, Councillor Bothwell.
Councillor Bothwell, I'll allow you to respond to Councillor Sharp's direct question, and then we'll continue with the speaker's order.
Thank you. I would just mention that the statement that he read is, the bank says, in response to your request received to confirm, and the wording is actually the wording from our council motion that was given to the bank by our staff. And all they do is reiterate that they took the resolution in good faith, and the resolution by the bank states that the people signing it had a council bylaw passed, and they didn't. So the point is, the CAO then in the ombudsman report said, I did a workaround because I know I should have had a council resolution and we didn't have one. So they promised me it was okay until we had the next council meeting. Well, nowhere in this letter does it say we approved the workaround of no council bylaw or resolution in order for these signing authorities. So that's my point. And I did not see, as the ombudsman indicated, that they could not confirm whether the workaround by the CAO had actually been approved by the bank. And the bank is not able to attest to that because unless they did a formal investigation, they said. So that's the way it goes. Thank you.
All right, next on our speaker list is Councillor Vardy.
I guess I have to say one thing. I completely support Councillor Bothwell's comments, and I share the concerns that she has. I think this is a serious matter, and I have to also respond to Councillor Sharp, who's telling her to just back off. You're not going to be around next time, so back off. I think personally, my opinion, that was an inappropriate comment. We have an active councillor who's worked very hard for this community, and to be, abused with such a comment like that is really
Mayor Jordan.
untoward. I'm speaking.
I called a point of order.
Yeah, it's gone both ways. Councillor Sharp was out of order.
I'm not sitting there saying it's not Mayor Jordan, but I'm calling a point of order because the comments are inappropriate. You need to stay on topic.
Councillor Vardy, continue with your debate.
Thank you. I was on topic. I think what's happened here, and if I refer to the comments made by Councillor Vane, or what I believe to be Councillor Vane, it's hard to tell, that what happened here is the CAO knew what actions he was going to take. And this whole incident took place because he did not properly plan for the outcome of what he was intending to do. Then he tries to fix his mistake, and Councillor Vane saying he's a hero because people got paid on time. The proper thing is that he should have planned for this, took care of it ahead of time, and then we wouldn't be in this mess today or having this discussion. So I take objection to that. I'd like to put forward a motion that when the auditors do the audit of 2021, that Grant Thornton include that as part of the audit.
I'll second that.
All right, the clerk is going to prepare that motion now. We have a mover and seconder.
And if I might add, I think it is the only responsible way forward in terms of where we are now.
If I may respond.
Go ahead, Beth.
Thank you, through the mayor. I just am seeking some clarification as I'm hearing this discussion. I think the recommendation would be to share with the auditors. They're actually on site right now doing our year-end audit. I can share with them the correspondence and the council reports and have them consider that in their audit, or are you speaking to asking for a specific audit engagement in relation to this?
I want my motion to stand, please, Mr. Mayor, because I want to be assured that this matter is going to be properly addressed.
All right. We have moved by Councillor Vardy, second by Councillor Frake. When the auditors perform the audit for the 2021 All right, moved by Councillor Vardy, second by Councillor Frake. Be it resolved, when the auditors perform the audit for 2021, that the item be included as part of the audit. And that's a recorded, discussion. First we'll have discussion on it. Councillor Ritchie, did you want to discuss on this one?
Motion?
Absolutely.
Moved by Councillor Vardy, second by Councillor Frake. Resolved, when the auditors perform the audit for 2021, that the item be included as part of the audit.
Which item?
All right, I'll read it again. Moved by Councillor Vardy, second by Councillor Frake. Resolved, when the auditors perform the audit for 2021, that report FIN 22-13 be included as part of the audit review. Councillor Ritchie?
Yes, thank you, through Mayor Jordan. I'd like to see that motion way more specific. Again, what are we talking from the time frame of March 31st to August 5th? Because I believe there was a motion that came forward to council. It was this council that chose to look into it deeper and further, and that caused further delays. So it's this council. So the only time frame we're looking from is actually March 31st to August 5th. That being said, we sit there and we all admit that there was a mistake made, but we love to put blame on our CAO. I need to remind this council that we let go a CAO before this one came on board. It was that CAO's obligation. It's one of the first things you'll learn in law is that if you have somebody who has signing authority, you're to notify everyone that they no longer have that signing authority. So this individual is allowed with the former treasurer to be a signing authority for several years. And when a new CEO comes in and sees the town running 8 months, 6 months after the fact, why would he be checking up on signing authorities? I don't get it. So the real problem lays with employees that we've had in the past. And here we are constantly on this witch hunt, constantly looking. We all know what some of these people's opinion are on what we should be happening here. But again, we have stuff from the bank that there's no issues. You want to have a motion from March 31st to August 5th to make sure there's no misappropriation of funds? Absolutely. No problem with that. We've got we've had now 2 treasurers. We've had Melanie. Now we have Beth saying there's no issues here. So we'll have an auditor, a third person. I don't know. Maybe we should call a 5th or a 6th. Maybe that'll satisfy some of these counselors. We also have the ombudsman saying that he does not see anything wrong here. We did everything we could. Should it have been handled differently? Yeah, maybe. Maybe the planning wasn't as good as what some counselors thought. But the bottom line is It is what it is. We resolved this problem speaking to legal many times. Somebody obviously filed a complaint with the ombudsman. The ombudsman has been satisfied. And now here we are constantly looking and constantly doing it for a mistake that was made by a former employee, not our CEO. Thank you.
Beth, I see your hands up.
Yes, thank you, through the mayor. I just wanted to highlight that the FIN 2108 did touch on the work that was done in communication with our auditors during that time period, and to and make them aware and note the processes and procedures that we took in place during that time frame to confirm that there was nothing that occurred during that time period that would cause any concerns from a financial perspective.
Point of clarity, Mayor Jordan?
Yes, Councillor Ritchie.
So if we have a report 2108 regarding that, and to ask our auditors, and if this council passed that and doing anything on top of that, would that not be a reconsideration? Because we've already asked them to look at it.
I see this as different. I don't think it's a reconsideration at all.
And I'll challenge you. I'd like to know what it says, report 2108, and to see for a challenge.
Yeah, because it's
asked them to look. We've already asked the auditors to look into it.
I've had a ruling from the clerk that says because it's a different report, it's not a reconsideration.
It's the same topic, is it not?
Councillor Vane.
Couple of things. I am kind of curious, actually, what Councillor Ritchie just said about is it the same topic or not? I kind of agree with him there. If it's the same topic, I kind of agree that we are reconsidering. Having said that, I also agree with Councillor Sharp that, and Councillor Ritchie said it as well, that I think we are doing a bit of a witch hunt here. I don't see, I think, again, even though Councillor Vardy doesn't agree, I think from March 31st to April 1st, Councillor Ritchie, by the way, not August, that we've run the business. The bank has no concerns. The auditor had no concerns. The treasurers have had no concerns. Councillor Ritchie's quite clear in that, or quite correct, sorry, in that our previous CAO and we as a council never caught it for the month. So if you want to hold somebody responsible, then hold us council as responsible, because when we got rid of the CAO, we obviously didn't do our due diligence. So to try and take our mistake and pass it on to an employee that some members of council do not appreciate or support is incorrect and unfair. So I won't be supporting this, and I think it's time we stop this witch hunt and we moved on with proper town business. We've got lots of things to deal with. Thank you.
Councillor Vardy.
I just want to say I acknowledge that there was no financial malfeasance, but I think what concerns me even more is if an employee had not been telling the truth to the bank. And to me, that's of grave concern, almost as much as if money had been misappropriated. Thank you.
Councillor Frake.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. Yeah, I do definitely agree with Councillor Bothwell's comments, and I do, as you know, endorse this particular motion. But this is more than just, you call it a witch hunt. I mean, come on, guys. I mean, who's been witch hunting who for the past 3.5 years? This is not a witch hunt. This is a time to try and get things right. This was a gross management error, and that's what we're trying to uncover, and we're trying to get right. If this had been managed properly, we wouldn't be talking about this today. When the CEO released 3 signing officers at the same time, that was bad management. And then we tried to get a workaround. So now we're backtracking. And I think all we're trying to do here is establish that we did do a workaround, which shouldn't have been done to begin with. And we keep coming back to the same place. I think we need to go through this audit and let our auditors do it, and do it forensically and get it right, so that we can go on, move on, and move away from this. So yeah, we need to do this, and I totally endorse it 100%. So this is not a witch hunt. call it what you want, but it's not a witch hunt.
I have Councillor Dunstall, then Councillor Cadwell, then Councillor Ritchie. He's spoken once on this resolution. Councillor Dunstall, go ahead.
Thank you. I was just going to call the question. The cows are getting out of the barn.
Councillor Cadwell wants to speak. He hasn't spoken on the issue.
Okay. Sorry, I'm in front. If I was beside him, I might have noticed. Go ahead.
Councillor Cadwell.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. Just thinking back of in time how all this came about, the concerns I really have is that the former treasurer, with the signing authority, when the former CAO was let go, to me that was his responsibility, that the changes should have been made, the appropriate changes for the signing authority. So it's which get pretty much to me it has got us to where we are too, because of the lack of due diligence done back in the past. So I'm just concerned that with everything that's been talked about with regards to the bank, everything was taken care of at the bank from what I'm reading, with due diligence there. So anyways, I just want to reflect on how it all, again, with the signing authority, how it should have been done properly. So that's it for now. Thank you.
Just further to your comment, we hired a seasoned CAO, so he should have looked into every aspect of the municipality. Councillor Ritchie, go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So I actually think that you're absolutely wrong on that, Mayor Jordan. Just to clarify that when you come in, you shouldn't be micromanaging everyone. Micromanaging and doing such things is actually a form of harassment. That being said, we've heard from other councillors tonight already now that they don't have any financial concerns. So if there is zero financial concerns, this is a witch hunt. This is absolutely a witch hunt that these individuals are trying to make our CEO out to be, I don't know what, I don't know, why don't they just put a resolution to fire the individual right now? If that's what they want. This is where they want to go. So just do it already if that's your case, because you want to sit there and say badge management, all the rest. We've already recognized that as, we've made that mistake. We've made this mistake. Now we're dragging this constantly on from one point to another. And we've had these councillors say they don't have any financial concerns. So what's the problem here then? Oh, wait, the CAO, they want to put the blame on him. They want to sit there and say he made bad mistakes. He did this. From when I look at it, our treasurer made the mistake in the past treasurer, by not changing the signing authority. That's how I look at it. And you sit there and we're going to go on and talk and you want financials. So if we have a report already that's asked our financial auditors to look into the situation and make them aware of it, we've addressed this concern again. And this is just another point of these councillors constantly saying, wait, let's make sure this is out there now again. We've been very transparent to the public. Thank you.
Councillor Bothwell.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. I'm just reading 2108, and I don't see anything about the auditors having reviewed it in here at all. So I'm not sure where our new treasurer is receiving that information that the auditors actually reviewed it. That's not in that report. I would just reiterate that we would not have had the bylaw amending the signing delegation on April 26th if I had not raised it as an issue April 6th and said, hey, who are our signing officers? March 31st, everything changed. Nothing would have gotten done. There was nothing brought forward until I said, well, who is our signing officers and what's in place? And it took till April 26th for those reports and that to be clarified with legal counsel saying to cover yourself, you need to retroactively do this action so that if the inconsistencies can be validated or verified in case we're ever asked. It's covering yourself is what it was. So no, it was not done properly, and it took pushing to get the CAO and finance to move forward with bringing a council resolution that actually cleaned up the signing authorities, and that shouldn't have happened. And the communication between council and our CAO was not good, and it just put us in a really, really awkward spot. So this is saying we really got to make sure that it doesn't happen again, and that's where I think the auditors really, really need to be aware of how this transpired and put it in a review. So thank you for the motion, Councillor Vardy. And again, I would say that it was not done right, and it was not handled right, and it wouldn't have been handled right until it got called out. Thank you.
Clarity, Mayor Jordan?
Go ahead, Councillor Ritchie.
Councillor Bothwell stated that we've asked the auditor to do it in the past. I believe the report asked them to do it this year to look into it.
There's
Am I correct in
nothing show me where it says that, Councillor Ritchie, because I can't find anything that asks the auditor to look into this incident.
Beth, you have a comment?
Yes, if I may, through the mayor. Just to clarify, in that FIN 2108, the reference was around internal controls specifically. So overall, the auditors will review to ensure that our internal controls are adequate. They did speak to us verbally and confirmed that they did not see any weaknesses in the current process. As outlined with the treasurer on April 21st, a formal written opinion could not be provided without a separate engagement dedicated to formally reviewing the controls. So I would seek some clarification around what it is that is intended when asking for an audit, if I could seek some clarity on that.
Mayor, if I may just interject, the next meeting, I brought a motion forward to have Grant Thornton do that investigative audit, and it was turned down by this council.
So then this would be a reconsideration of a motion.
No, it's a different resolution, so.
We're asking Grant Thornton to do an audit on this matter.
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Dunstall called the question some time ago. Can we just call the question as he requested?
Yeah, we need to vote on calling the question, and we need 2/3 to approve calling the question. So I'm willing to do that now.
Point of order, Mayor Jordan. I think this is a reconsideration of the motion. Seeing how Councillor Bothwell has put a motion forward beforehand, which was turned down by this council, to have Grant Thornton look into this.
Yeah, I don't feel it, because it's a different report, I don't feel it's a reconsideration.
That's fine. I'll challenge your decision then. Thank you.
All right, so we'll vote on it.
Yep.
Mr. Mayor, for point of clarification, did the clerk not just make a ruling?
No, I don't make the ruling. The chair does.
The clerk just gives
The
a
clerk advises, so
recommendation,
the
and
clerk advised that it's not a reconsideration.
Yes, that's correct.
So if we have a vote that, to determine whether or not people agree with Councillor Ritchie, and it gets voted 5-4, basically, you know, anyone can say the sky is red, and if 5 people vote for it, the sky's red, but it's not, you know, it doesn't make the sky red. So I'm really uncomfortable that we have a vote on this.
Order, Mayor Jordan.
No, I'm speaking. Please stop interrupting me.
Councillor Ritchie,
You don't need,
The point of order. She asked
what's
for
your point of order, Councillor
I'm
Ritchie?
getting my clarification,
She should
please.
not be entitled to a speech. What's her point? You make a ruling on it.
She
Yes, so we're
is
making a
Councillor
ruling on
Vardy, if you will. Please be polite.
I'm Councillor Vardy.
Better?
All right, so we're voting on whether my decision's upheld. Recorded vote.
We have a point of clarity. If we vote yes, we are voting in favor of the mayor. If we're voting no, we're saying that this is a reconsideration, correct?
Yes, so you're modifying procedure. Yes.
Councillor Bothwell,
Support the mayor, yes.
Councillor Dunstall,
No.
Councillor Frake,
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Councillor Cadwell,
Yes.
Councillor Ritchie,
No.
Councillor Sharp,
I think this is a reconsideration. No.
Councillor Vane,
No.
Councillor Vardy,
I support the mayor, yes.
Mayor Jordan.
Yes.
That is carried.
All right, now we're moving to the resolution. I think everyone has spoken. I request a recorded vote, so.
Now to the motion, Councillor Bothwell,
Yes.
Councillor Dunstall,
No.
Councillor Frake,
Yes.
Councillor Cadwell,
Yes.
Councillor Ritchie,
No.
Councillor Sharp,
No.
Councillor Vane,
No.
Councillor Vardy,
Yes.
Mayor Jordan.
Yes.
That is carried.
All right, now we move to section 8.2, resolutions. Councillor Ritchie, the print media distribution bylaw. Go ahead, Councillor Ritchie.
Yes, thank you through the mayor. Just bringing it up here quickly. So I've had a lot of residents talk to me. They get a lot of flyers dropped off at their houses that don't get put into their mailbox or don't get put into a mail slot. So this is just to look at the options that we have. Many municipalities have done this, that, flyers and all the rest need to go into a mail slot or a mailbox to keep the littering down on the streets. The people aren't home. They fly over. So all I'm asking is that our staff take a look at what options are available to us and bring it back to us for this council to either make a decision to try and control some of this this potential litter or leave it as is. But again, this has been many constituents in my ward have asked for this, and that's why I'm bringing this forward. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think that this just helps make Grimsby a cleaner community. Again, we'll see what staff has to look into and ask for their recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ritchie. Any further speakers? Seeing none, I'll read the resolution. Or I need a mover and seconder, actually. I have a mover. Councillor Ritchie is the mover. Seconder?
I'll second
Councillor
it.
Dunstall? Moved by Councillor Ritchie, second by Councillor Dunstall. Whereas Section 128 of the Municipal Act 2001, SO 2001 C25 as amended, provides that a local municipality may prohibit and regulate with respect to public nuisances, including matters that, in the opinion of council, are or could become public nuisances. And whereas Section 11 of the Municipal Act 2001, SO 2001 C25 as amended, provides that the municipality may pass bylaws respecting inter alia, health, safety, and the well-being of persons and waste management. Therefore be it resolved that town staff be directed to investigate and provide a recommendation on the implementation of a bylaw respecting the distribution of printed media. Recorded vote.
Councillor Bothwell,
Yes.
Councillor Dunstall,
Yes?
Councillor Frake,
Yes.
Councillor Cadwell,
Yes.
Councillor Ritchie,
Yes.
Councillor Sharp,
Yes.
Councillor Vane,
Yes.
Councillor Vardy,
Yes.
Mayor Jordan.
Yes.
That is carried.
Now we move to report 9.1A, report DRS 22-13, Casablanca Beach Park, Park Design and Plan. Sarah, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Jordan, member of council. I believe we're going to be sharing a presentation. We'll just give Olivia 1 second to put that up. And while she's putting it up, I just wanted to introduce a few of our team members that will be also sharing a couple of comments with you this evening. We have Olivia Fraser with us this evening, who is our Parks and Open Space Coordinator, Mike Grable, Parks and Facilities Manager. We also have Brad Smith from Safarian Designs, who is our landscape consultant working on this. Hopefully he's in the room with us now. So they're going to be talking to you about some of the work that we're doing. We've also been working with all of our departments in the municipality. It's been a great collaborative effort with planning, public works, the finance department for this big important project. And we've also had a lot of support and assistance from the Niagara region team, which has been much appreciated. Next slide, Olivia. So we're going to run through just a few short things with you. This is all mirroring the report that you have, but just sort of summarizing some of that content, just to let you know the work that's been done and what the next steps will be. This park is, of course, a very exciting one for our team, and we've been using a variety of resources to help shape the work that we have come to at this point, including the West End Waterfront Plan, our Parks Recreation Culture Master Plan, and of course, some of the feedback we've received from the community as we've gone along as well. We've also worked really hard to try to balance a park that has a neighborhood component to it, a destination park component to it, and a unique waterfront component to it. And it really is going to be a unique space for Grimsby that we can be very proud of. And lastly, before I turn it over, I just wanted to share that all these updates and this content will also be posted to the Let's Talk Grimsby page, sharing it with the community and some of our stakeholders as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Olivia, and we're happy to take questions at the end.
So the community engagement feedback phase was open for a 3-week period. Feedback was encouraged through a variety of forms, such as through the concept survey, newsfeed, posts, and emails to staff. To increase engagement, various forms were used, such as posters in facilities and parks, social media, and newspaper ads. There were 869 site visits during the engagement period. The chart on the right shows the breakdown of where the site visits came from. We received positive feedback, but also heard some concerns. The concerns were used to develop 4 central design goals. So goal 1 is to create an accessible and inclusive community space. Goal 2 is to find a balance of active and passive space. Goal 3 is to preserve the park's nature and environment. And goal 4 is to address the parking concerns and prioritize. I'm going to pass over the presentation to Brad, who will talk through how the goals created by the community feedback guided the design concept development.
Thanks, Olivia, and everyone. Yeah, just to touch on this really briefly, as Olivia mentioned, one of the main goals, arguably the most important goal of the park, is to create a community space that is accessible and inclusive for all. So wanted to just highlight that we've made the entire park accessible. All the slopes are less than 5%. We've included beach mats, accessible benches backed with armrests, accessible options to the beach, ramped spaces. The washroom facility, I'll touch on a little bit later, is for universal stalls. So playgrounds have accessible options. So the entire space from east to west really is fully AODA compliant and fully accessible and inclusive for everyone. So next slide, Olivia. One of the big areas or key goals, again, with the park is improving pedestrian safety and circulation. So through the public consultation process, we did hear feedback to improve park access along Place Polonais Drive, just north of Pierre Elliott Trudeau Lane, and west of the Lang restaurant. So this is being accomplished by we've reconfigured that access into the park at that interchange. So when you come into, I guess, north along Polonaise Drive, north into the park, you have to almost do a 90-degree turn, which leads you to a ramp space that takes you down to the waterfront trail. And then we've elevated the terrace. The terrace space along Place Polonaise Drive as it fronts the park directly. So there's no longer, if you were biking along Place Polonaise, say north into the park, there's no longer this direct access into the park. You're slowed by reconfiguring ramps, raised terraces, terrace plantings, and such. The other area I wanted to quickly highlight too, along Pierre Elliott Trudeau Lane, there's some townhouses that front the park space. We've, through our park plans, we've proposed to really do nothing in those areas, preserve those unobstructed views to the lake, no additional plantings or site infrastructure or anything like that. We're just maintaining those views in that existing space along those townhouses. Next slide, Olivia. The park itself really is programmed to be compromised of combination of active and passive recreation areas. Active recreation, includes gathering plazas, playgrounds, picnic areas, of course, the beach. And then flexible market spaces for pop-up events and things like that. One of the areas that we really wanted to touch on that we really are proud of at the park is the improvements to the West End playground. We're working with a Danish playground vendor, Monstrum Playgrounds. This would be the first playground of its kind in Canada, which is very exciting. It puts kind of Grimsby on the map in terms of playground development and just helps strengthen that waterfront destination as Grimsby's premier park. With the loon, with the terrace that we've created in this space, and the loon sitting like you'd think of a traditional loon would sit in the water, we really keep the views down. So from the street, looking to the lake, you really are looking over the play structure. You may see the top of the loon's head a little bit, but nothing is blocking views of the lake. Really throughout the entire park, but more specifically in this area too. You can go to the next slide. Through the community engagement and public feedback, we heard that having a washroom facility, pavilion space is very important in the west end of the park. So what we've designed here is it has 4 universal stalls. They've been kind of situated in a way that the doors are along this corridor within the washroom space, and then having a large pavilion that kind of cantilevers out over the space. So lots of shade, lots of seating, park signage as you enter the park from the west end. And then really flexible space for pop-up events or and whatnot. Good connection to the playground spaces. Washroom buildings are close to the east west end playgrounds for good accessibility in that regard. And as I said, they're fully accessible, AODA compliant, those washroom facilities. So if you go to the next slide. Here, of course, one of our key goals again was preserving and enhancing the natural environment of the park, and one aspect of this is including the planting of native and Carolinian species and shrubs. So we've really focused our planting plan on in that regard. Woodlot cleanup, removal of invasive species, especially in phase 2, kind of in that middle area. Permeable paving options when we can, introducing pollinator gardens, improving stormwater collection and infiltration throughout the park, and preserving the natural resource. Of course, we're not planning to touch the creek infrastructure that runs through the park right now. We're not touching the lake or any of the existing shoreline protection, just not even really touching the entire waterfront trail, just two key areas. We're kind of just realigning it, but that main trail, kilometer or so trail that runs along the waterfront is won't be impacted at all. So really a strong emphasis on the natural environment with the redevelopment of the park. You go to the next slide.
Good evening, Council. So where is parking available? Parking is a concern. It was brought up by the public. We have not specifically addressed the parking in this park. We wanted to maintain our green space, although Public Works is doing a parking study to actually figure out, what our next steps are going to be for parking with the new development and that over there. Next slide, please. So our financial impact, we have estimated our budget at $3.2 million, which is on track of what we had estimated at the beginning. We are going to go out to RFP, and that could change. It could come lower, it could come higher, depending on what contractors bring forth for us. There will be a cost annually to operate and maintain this space, and that will be coming forward in the 2023 budget. $40,000 is our estimate at this current point, just because we are looking at increase in service for that area, as well as maintaining the walking path in the wintertime for everyone to use. So next slide, please. So as you can see, our milestones, we're on track. We're looking now, we're at the 75% is complete. Now we're going towards the 100% design completion. We're looking at putting out the RFP and get this project started. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. And council has any questions, we will answer.
Thank you, everyone, for your presentation. Questions or comments from council? Councillor Vardy.
Well, I think it's a great plan. So I just want to congratulate you on the work that you've done, and I'm really pleased with it. And I have to say, your focus on Carolinian and native plants, excuse me, I really appreciate seeing that and being able to contribute to our ecosystem. So thank you very much.
Councillor Bothwell.
Thank you. I just want to thank rec staff, all of them, and Sarah Sweeney especially for guiding this along so well, and the public engagement piece and listening to what the community was saying. Did you mention that this was a really unique playground structure thing? I can't remember the name of it, but it's I haven't seen it before, this type. Well, maybe one, can you explain a little bit about how the playground structure, especially the loon and those type of activity structures, kind of came about?
Sarah, just decide whoever is most appropriate to answer that. Okay.
I can start it off maybe, and then if the others, if there's something I can't answer. Something we looked at was really trying to do something unique in that space because of the waterfront, because of the space that we have. The thought of having something that's picturesque and pleasing to enjoy, even if you're not actually going down the slide, although anybody will be welcome to go down the slide. And also trying to keep something that was lower and that had a bit of a different feel to it, so that you could enjoy those spaces without it feeling maybe like just a regular playground. We like the water idea, sort of incorporating that in. Obviously, the loon has quite a significant a Canadian symbol for us, so we thought it was something fun to try and do something unique, as we said, so that when you're enjoying Grimsby, you see something different that hopefully you return to. I often think of Nellis Lake Beach Park, for example, that everybody still calls the boat park because there's a boat surrounding it. I think it's quite possible you'll eventually see a component of this park referred to as the Loon Park, And I think that might be quite nice.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And a great selfie location too. Thanks, Sarah.
Absolutely.
Seeing no further questions or comments from council, just thank you very much, Sarah, Brad, Olivia, and Mike. That's an exciting project for down at the beach. Finally, it's very exciting that we're going to get construction starting in the fall. Thank you. So I have a resolution here, moved by Councillor Vardy, second by Councillor Bothwell. Resolved that report DRS 22-13 Casablanca Beach Park Design and Plan be received for information, that the operating and maintenance costs associated with the park be forwarded to the 2023 budget process. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, now we move to 11.1, our planning delegation. Diana Morris from T. Johns Consulting Group.
She's just joining.
Diana's just joining now. Is Walter introducing?
I don't think. I think it's just
Okay,
Diana.
all right. I will wait for Diana. Welcome, Diana. I see you now and I can hear you, so go ahead.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Peter. Good evening, Mayor Jordan, members of council and town staff. My name is Diana Morris, Senior Planner at T. Johns Consulting Group, agent on behalf of West Lincoln Memorial Hospital Foundation for their proposed zoning bylaw amendment application for their property located at 174 Main Street East. Next slide, please. The subject lands are located on the south side of Main Street East of Governor's Road and west of Walker Court, with an approximate area of 0.22 hectares and 24.38 meters of frontage on Main Street East. Next slide, please. The property is an existing residential lot with one vacant single detached dwelling and one detached garage. The proposed use will use the existing dwelling for an office, with additional parking spaces proposed from the previous 3 parking spaces to 5 parking spaces. These include 1 accessible parking space, 2 spaces in the driveway roundabout, and 2 spaces within the detached garage for a total of 5 parking spaces. The minimum of 5 parking spaces has also been incorporated into the proposed zoning bylaw and will include 1 accessible parking space. Next slide, please. A street presence for the foundation is crucial to its success and will provide greater exposure to donors, patrons, and supporters of the hospital. No changes to the dwelling or the existing driveway are proposed except for future signage. Next slide, please. The subject land is designated low-density residential area. The proposed office for the foundation is considered a community facility, which is a permitted use within this designation. No site or building alterations are proposed. Therefore, it will respect the character and the streetscape of the existing neighborhood. Next slide, please. The Town of Grimsby zoning bylaw zones the land's Main Street MS.15 zone. An office is not permitted within this zone, and therefore a site-specific modified zone is proposed to allow the office use, specifically for foundation staff. The proposed use is restrictive in nature to ensure that the Main Street zone is maintained. Next slide, please. I'd like to thank you all for your time this evening and respectfully request approval of this proposed zoning bylaw amendment. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, Diana. Questions or comments from council? Seeing none, Adam, go ahead.
I have a brief presentation as well, just to add on to Diana's points, if we'd like to go through that first.
All right, we'll go through that and then we'll receive both of them after.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Peter, I have some slides to share. All right, so thank you again, Diana, for your presentation. I just want to add a little bit onto that. So I'm Adam, I'm one of the planners. I just want to briefly go over the zoning bylaw amendment application for 174 Main Street East. So as Diana stated, the proposed bylaw amendment is to readapt an existing single detached dwelling for use as office space for the West Lincoln Memorial Hospital Foundation. So the existing detached garage would be used as parking for 2 cars, with an additional 3 spaces provided on site, with no development occurring on the site, with the site being utilized as existing. So as far as the official plan designation, it's designated low-density residential area, which allows for a mixture of residential uses, including single detached dwellings and community facilities. It's considered a stable residential neighborhood, but does allow for limited development, evolution, and rejuvenation. So just to go over the zoning briefly, as Diana mentioned, the current zoning at 174 Main Street East is Main Street or MS15, permitting a maximum 15% lot coverage. So the proposed zoning is included on this slide as well. It's going to maintain the MS15 designation with modified performance standards, adding the additional use of the West Lincoln Memorial Hospital Foundation use. Specifically office space for the West Lincoln Memorial Hospital Foundation. As well, there will be relief from parking requirements, normally at a rate of 1 space required per 28 square meters of gross floor area for office space. That would require 8 parking spaces. There's relief for 5 parking spaces required. Originally, the proposal was for 3 parking spaces. However, that has now been changed to 5 following the public meeting. And there's also looking to bring into conformity the existing dwelling, detached garage, driveway, and aisle with zoning bylaw 1445. So just to quickly outline the planning process, we had a pre-con meeting a while back for this application, which outlined some of the requirements that were to be submitted. And once we received the application, it was circulated for public review on our website and to the agencies for review as well. We had an open house on March 28th and a public meeting on April 25th. From that public meeting, there were some minor revisions that were made for a new submission related to parking and identifying extra parking on the site, which has led to this staff recommendation report. Again, so just going over some of the comments, again, accessible and visitor parking was brought up as a point of concern at the public meeting. Originally, the proposal was for only 3 parking spaces being required specifically for that office use. That has been increased to 5, and the accessible parking space has been provided on site, although that is already a requirement in the zoning bylaw, so it's not needed for the amendment itself. There were questions at the open house about the zoning and the use clarification, specifically, is this use going to be commercial forever, or is it still open for residential? It is still open for residential use. The parking requirement would apply specifically for the office space use for the hospital foundation. Residential parking, should this property return to being a residential use in the single detached dwelling, would still be 2 spaces as per the bylaw. And as far as comments from agencies, there were no concerns that were identified by agencies. So just in reviewing the application was looked at in regards to the town's official plan policies. So the development does align with the principles of controlled growth and utilizes existing infrastructure for the readaptation of the current built form on the property, the single detached dwelling, in accordance with section 2.2 of the official plan. So for the existing buildings and driveway and aisle on the subject lot, the proposed zoning would bring them into conformity with the zoning bylaw. The proposed use would fit in with the character of the surrounding area, and by utilizing the existing single detached dwelling would maintain the character and look of the Main Street corridor in accordance with section 3.4.7.4H of the official plan. And in terms of parking, planning staff do feel that the parking can be sufficiently provided on the subject lot for visitors and for employees with a total of 5 parking spaces. So just to conclude with staff's recommendations, planning staff are recommending that report PA 22-17 for the application of zoning bylaw amendment 26Z-16-2202 at 174 Main Street East be received, and that the zoning bylaw amendment and draft bylaw attached to the staff recommendation report as Appendix B be submitted to the council for approval. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, Adam. Questions or comments from council? Councillor Bothwell.
Thank you, Mayor. I didn't realize it sounds like we merged the delegation and the report, which is following in 11.2A.
Just a clarification, Councillor Bothwell, we have a resolution to receive the delegation. I just haven't addressed it yet, that's all.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure if we're going to be moving forward on Adam's presentation, which has a recommendation in his report as well, that I have a request with respect to the zoning bylaw amendment. So when we do, if it's possible, what I'd like to do is, because of the change to the parking, Adam, in Table A to Bylaw 22-XX, it mentions the minimum number of parking spaces required for West Lincoln Memorial Hospital Foundation office use, and then it says 5 parking spaces. I think that we need to clearly indicate in that site-specific zoning amendment, in brackets, 1 accessible space, similar to what your report identifies, because otherwise 5 parking spaces could be interpreted as the standard parking, and the accessible parking spaces do require specific widths and setbacks, et cetera, and that. So I would just ask that the Table A be amended to make sure it's very clear that it's 5 parking spaces, and then in brackets, including 1 accessible space. If that's possible, Adam.
Adam or Walter, both your hands are up.
Yeah, I could respond to that. So as far as the accessible space, there is actually a requirement for accessible parking within the zoning bylaw itself. So in section 5.13 of the zoning bylaw A, it does state that for every 20 spaces, one accessible space is required as per the zoning bylaw. So that goes all the way up from 1 space to 20 spaces. However many spaces are required determines how many accessible parking spaces are required. So in this case, the 1 is required already in the zoning bylaw, which is why it was excluded from being mentioned in the actual bylaw amendment.
I would just question that, because I understand what you're saying, that it requires 1, but through all the public consultation I participated in, they didn't identify it at all until I asked about it. And then they addressed it and said they would provide 1. So there was at no time did they indicate that they were required to provide it. So I would suggest, to be very clear, that it be provided, that it be indicated in the zoning bylaw amendment, site specific, because we are moving from a residential to an office use. And I think that it would make it very clear that that 1 needs to be protected while it's being used for this purpose, and that it does meet those requirements, because it's going to be put into the turnaround area. And I'm just a little concerned that if they're putting an accessible space in there, they're going to have clearance for fire route and everything like that. So I just want to make sure it is identified that 1 of the 5 must be accessible. I just don't want to see it come up later that it wasn't clear in the site-specific amendment. And I think I've seen it in other ones, so maybe Walter can clarify for me, but it would make me feel much better if it did say 1 accessible space.
Walter? Walter, you're muted.
Thank you. I apologize. Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. To answer the question directly, it's not required to be identified in the site-specific requirements because the parent bylaw already requires it. So it's redundant to put it in again as a site-specific requirement. There also, in addition to that, there's no requirement for an on-site fire route. So the parking space would not be hindering any fire requirement because there is no requirement for an on-site fire route.
May I just speak to that, Mayor, for a second? Walter,
Go ahead, Councillor Bothwell.
Sorry, thank you. Because it's still a residential use, it's not changing to commercial or office. It's just adding a permitted use for the foundation office. Because it's still deemed a residential zone, does that accessible parking space fall under that requirement for sure?
Walter?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The use is changing on the site. So as soon as the office use is established on the site, the office use requirements, subject to the site-specific provisions of the bylaw, will apply. If the site was to revert back to residential at some point in the future, then the residential provisions of the zoning bylaw would be applicable for parking.
Thank you.
All right, seeing no further questions or comments, I'll deal with the delegation resolution first. Moved by Councillor Vardy, second by Councillor Frake. Resolved that the delegation from Diana Morris of T. Johns Consulting Group be received. All in favor? That's carried. Now we just need a mover and seconder for the planning report. Moved by Councillor Cadwell, second by Councillor Frake. Moved by Councillor Cadwell, second by Councillor Frake. Resolved that report PA 22-16, proposed site plan amendment, file number 26SP16-2108, application, McDonald Zubrek Ensign Architects, 18 Oaks Road North, dated May 16, 2022, be received. Oh, this is the wrong one. All right, the movers and seconders were Cadwell and Frake. Now we have the right one. Moved by Councillor Cadwell, second by Councillor Frake. Resolved that report PA 22-17, application for zoning bylaw amendment 26 ed 16 2022 at 174 Main Street East, dated May 11th, 2022, be received, and that zoning bylaw amendment and the draft bylaw attached to the report as Appendix B be submitted to council for approval. All in favor? That's carried. Now we move to the lifted lifted report. Report 7.4A moves to 11.2B. That's report PA 22-16. Who's going to speak on that?
That was the consent item.
All right, yeah, so no one's presenting on that. Councillor Bothwell, you're first on the speakers list.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. This is on the Oaks Road addition to Smith School. Just a question for staff. I appreciate that they did update the comment matrix to show us what some of the comments were from the appropriate agencies. And the Town of Grimsby Fire Department did note in their comments that we recommend that while the school is under construction, that not only the new addition be sprinklered, but the entire existing building as well. And then the comment just says response to building and fire was submitted by Matthew Bowlby, but it doesn't say what it was. So I just would ask if staff could provide what the response was on whether the addition plus the existing building would be sprinklered. Thank you.
Walter, did you want to respond to that, or do you need to do that?
That's an issue that's to be resolved with our building department. Through the building permit process.
All right, thank you. Further questions or comments? Seeing none, moved by Councillor Cadwell, second by Councillor Frake. Resolved that report PA 22-16, proposed site plan amendment, file 26SP16-2108, application McDonald Zubrek Eston Architects, 18 Oaks Road North, dated May 16, 2022, be received, that the site plan be approved subject to the technical conditions listed in Appendix A to the report, and the mayor and town clerk be authorized to sign the development agreement on the town's behalf. All in favor? That's carried.
Riley's going to be presenting.
All right, okay. Now we move to report 11.2C, report PA 22-18 information report, Uptown update on the downtown reimagined. Riley, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone. So we are bringing an information report forward to provide the Committee of the Whole with background information on the progress of the Downtown Reimagined project and provide a revised schedule. As can be seen in the information report, the Downtown Reimagined project has 3 main phases. Phase 1 is the current process that will lead to the development of a concept for the area and a refresh of the Downtown Grimsby Master Plan, the Downtown Design Guidelines, and the Community Improvement Plan documents. It is anticipated that the parking and transportation study will commence in the summer and early fall prior to the completion of Phase 1. Phase 2 is when the detailed design of the water main and streetscape improvements will take place. Works completed prior will inform the detailed design. And Phase 3 is the construction phase that will improve the water mains and public realm. I'd note that the town was actually awarded $1.9 million in provincial and federal funding, which will be used for the water main project taking place on Main Street and Elm Street. So throughout Phase 1, the town interacted heavily with the public, the DIA, and stakeholders. As a result of the feedback received from the visioning workshops held, questions were raised regarding the timeline proposed, and a request was made for further public consultation. So as a result, staff revised the process to offer additional opportunities for engagement on the draft vision and guiding principles that are attached to this report and the working concepts. So the initial schedule for Phase 1 included 1 more public meeting, followed by a report brought to council seeking approval of the preferred working concept. And changes to the project schedule will be focused on gaining additional community feedback. Planned community engagement events include the Grimsby Farmers Market, outreach through Let's Talk Grimsby, an informal open house happening in Grimsby, and a formal open house online. So feedback received from these events will be used to prepare the final documents. And we feel this refined process will better engage the community in this important endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you, Riley. Questions or comments from council? Councillor Frake.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. Hi, Riley. How are you? Thanks for the report. As you know, I've been pretty close to this one and pretty verbal, and so has several other councillors outside of the DIA. As you know, one of the biggest issues with this report was the very feeble attempt towards accommodating the parking downtown. And I still don't see a strong statement in there saying that we're going to not take away those parking spaces on the street and Main Street. So I assume that, and by the way, there's a letter attached from the DIA merchants that's very strongly states that they are not in agreement with this particular project so far, because most of the parking has been taken out of the downtown. So I'm hoping that, I know this is going to a public meeting, but I still think there needs to be another strong emphasis on the parking, which merchants have put forward. So I assume, is that going to be part of the report? Is this going to be a revised to include those comments and those issues that the merchants have put forward?
Yes, so through you, Mr. Mayor. Following the visioning workshops held, we recognized the concerns brought forward pertaining to parking and understood the need for a parking study. So we're currently seeking a viable concept for the downtown area. And as such, we're completing the necessary studies to ensure that what is being proposed is realistic for our community members and businesses. So the parking study will really guide and solidify the concepts. I will also note that I understand that there may not have been clear communication pertaining to the concepts that were presented at the second round of visioning sessions held a few months ago. However, I'd advise that these concepts were presented for discussion purposes, and neither are to be brought forward for approval. Rather, the concepts have been revised since those meetings and will continue to be revised throughout the process as we go forward.
And it's, this particular downtown reimagined cannot happen until, for sure, I mean, the traffic study and the parking study has to be completed and incorporated into this report, any project going forward. I assume that we're all in agreement on that. I mean, and I believe the consultants are hopefully thinking the same way, right? And planning is as well?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just give a brief outline of the timeline proposed for this project. So we're currently in phase 1 of the project, and the conclusion of phase 1 will be dependent on the feedback received. And we are also intending to include some of the initial results from the parking study and the traffic impact assessment in the finalized documents that we will be bringing forward, which does include the working concept. So we intend to conclude phase 1 late this year, early 2023, so we can bring forward a concept that best meets the community's vision for this area. And then the parking study and traffic impact assessment will conclude in Q4 of this year. And then phase 2 will be undertaken, which is the detailed design phase. And that will be commencing early 2023. And finally, phase 3 will begin, which is the construction phase. And that will commence, at this point, we're anticipating 2024, and we'll be working with downtown business owners to best determine the construction timeline.
Okay, I just can't emphasize enough how important it is to have the appropriate amount of parking downtown, and more parking as the downtown grows, which it will require more and more parking. And it was very disturbing to see in the drawings on the consultant's plan that they've taken out all of the parking, pretty much all of the parking downtown. So so it's important that we definitely put parking back and find other ways to accommodate parking downtown, because if the town gets busier down there and we want more traffic downtown for our merchants, then parking is the key. And of course, the traffic flow is also very important as well, because if we don't have a proper traffic flow, people will just bypass the downtown and keep going. So anyways, I look forward to the traffic study, because I think that's the key to this, and the parking study. So thank you, Riley. I know you did a lot of work on this, and thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Cadwell.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan, and thank you for the report, Riley. And what it does for me, it gives me a lot of clarification, because the DIA meeting of in April, they were stating that as stakeholders, there was not a lot of involvement with the DIA in the region. And on page 3 of your report, it shows where there was 3 vision workshops hosted, and the Niagara region was also included in that. And it's on the second paragraph, the second line, the DIA was also included in that too, with the 34 workshop participants. So there has been a lot of engagement with the other stakeholders too, just for clarification.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. We've had quite significant engagement throughout phase 1 of this project. Engagement has been undergone through a survey that was released to the public. I believe we got over 450 responses on that survey itself. We also opened up our Let's Talk Grimsby website. So any interested participants could provide some input on what they would like to see downtown, what they would like to, what they really visualize downtown. And so that input was very useful throughout the project, as well as the visioning sessions that were held. So we've had 2 rounds of visioning sessions. Our first round was one session was with the public, one was with the DIA members, and one was with the stakeholders. And then through our second round, we had another visioning session with DIA members and another visioning session with our stakeholders. And we're open to further communication as well via email. We'll be opening up our Let's Talk Grimsby website again. We'll be using social media to further engage with the public. We'll also be attending, as mentioned earlier, the farmers market and happening in Grimsby. And so we hope to continue significant public engagement on a move forward.
Thank you, Riley. And if I may, just and I do support the parking down on Main Street. I think it's important that we have that parking there for the businesses. I also like the idea of looking at Elm Street, possibly for bike pathways or those for the bicycles. So yeah, thank you very much then.
Councillor Vardy.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I guess, the first thing I'd like to say is ditto parking and traffic studies. I think they're really, really important. And I think that, personally, I think we need parking downtown. Something that always worries me is that when we try to fit too much into an existing road, like wider sidewalks, bicycles, and cars, then there isn't enough room for anybody. So, it always worries me because when traffic gets really close together, maybe that's when you have accidents. But I do think it's really important to have parking downtown. I guess the second thing I want to mention is that I know you said you've done consultation, but I've read the concerns raised by the DIA, and I think consultation means reflecting what people are saying into the final reports. And I think that's where the breakdown has been, is that the issues, particularly around parking, didn't appear in either of the original recommendations. So, that's a concern, and just as someone who's spent half a lifetime doing consultations, it's more than just going out, listening to what people say and then walking away. It's really about taking what people are saying they want and trying to accomplish that. The next thing is that I think we need to have more active public engagement. So I know that we're using the Let's Talk Grimsby, and I know you've got some things planned this summer, but I think we should be looking at taking some ads out in the newspaper so that we can drive people to the website, because I don't know how many people actually just go looking to see what's going on, but if they know of an issue, are made aware of it. And I know that our local paper has good readership, so I think we should be using our local paper to to drive that public engagement process so we can get their comments from Let's Talk Grimsby. And I guess the final thing I have to say is that I would really like you to take a hard look at the concept of living walls. And I don't know are you familiar with that at all? You are? Good, great. So for those who are not, they are green walls, and you can attach they can be behind benches, and what they do is they clean the air, in some phenomenal way, as if you had planted, 40, 50 trees in that area. So I think living walls might be a more effective way to green the area than necessarily planters. You might get more bang for your buck, and you use them as a place where people can sit. So I'd just like to draw your attention to that concept and see if maybe we couldn't get some of those newer innovations in environmental concerns put into it. So thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Or Riley, did you want to comment? Go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, I would just like to, I appreciate the recommendations pertaining to the design. Those are certainly something worth exploring, and we're consulting with the Conservation Authority. We have multiple different groups that we're consulting with, and we're certainly looking at environmental initiatives that can be incorporated downtown as well. Now, I know you mentioned the recommended concepts, and I just want to make sure it's clear that I understand maybe it wasn't clear during the previous meetings, but I want to make sure it's known that the concepts previously presented were presented for discussion purposes and neither are being recommended. They have been revised since and they will continue to be revised. So we do intend for the desired concept to be presented come the conclusion of phase 1. However, the concept will continuously be adjusted as we progress because the concepts will be influenced by the community and stakeholder input that we will continue to gather, the parking study and traffic assessment, and may further be altered through the detailed design and construction phases as needed. And pertaining to the active engagement that you had mentioned, we really we're looking to pursue active engagement in a major way. That was one of our major reasonings behind the revised schedule and the revised plan. So we will be involved in at happening in Grimsby and at those farmers markets. And we intend to work alongside council, the DIA, stakeholders, public to come up with a plan that we're all excited about for our downtown.
Thank you.
Thank you, Riley. Councillor Bothwell.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. And Riley, I appreciate the many different ways that you're going to try to move forward with gathering more constructive public input. Will they, when you talk about going to these informal places to speak to people, you're going to be filtering it out to ensure that we're getting the residents of Grimsby and not just visitors who are coming in that might not have a concept as to what we're going through. Like the happening in Grimsby brings a lot of external people into town. So I just want to, how you filter your questions for that group of people and then how you capture that information into comment matrices and show how those comments are then incorporated into action through the consultant's review of those. You have a plan for all that, right? So that those type of comments and stuff will be in a matrix and then incorporated and show how they've been used. Is that right?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, so in terms of the engagement at these public events, we will certainly aim to speak with the members of the community. We're looking to prepare a concept that really meets the desires of the community members themselves, the business owners, and any stakeholders. So we will be focused on gaining input from the community rather than others who may be attending these events. And I'm sorry, may you please repeat your second question there?
Just wanted to ensure that the comments are captured in a matrix, comment matrix, and that the consultant uses those comments and shows how those comments have been used to formulate their further action plans.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. The comments have all been recorded. We have meeting minutes from each meeting that has taken place. We have everything that has been input onto Let's Talk Grimsby, as well as emails received. Those have all been saved and recorded, and those are being reflected through our vision and guiding principles. And the draft vision and guiding principles have been attached here with the report that has been presented today. Now those will continue to be updated alongside the concepts as we gather more feedback. So those are not finalized draft vision and finalized vision and guiding principles. Rather, they are currently draft, and they will continue to be altered as we gather more input.
All right, seeing no further questions or comments, thank you very much for your report, Riley. Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor Vardy. Resolved that report PA 22-18 information report updated on the Downtown Reimagined project dated May 16, 2022 be received for information. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Riley. Have a good evening.
Thank you, you as well.
All right, now we're moving to correspondence. I need a mover and seconder for the correspondence items. Moved by Councillor Vardy, second by Councillor Frake. Moved by Councillor Vardy, second by Councillor Frake. Resolved that the following correspondence items be received. City of Thorold submission to the province, Bill 109, NRT on-demand metrics for Grimsby, Grimsby DIA letter, downtown reimagined. All in favor? That's carried. All right, the next meeting of the Committee of the Whole is scheduled for June 6th at 5:30 p.m. We're starting our summer schedule on June 6th. So the next, or the council meeting will start at 8:40. So this meeting is adjourned. See you in 10 minutes. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the council meeting of Monday, May 16th, 2022 to order. Could everyone please rise for the playing of the national anthem? Niagara Region and Grimsby are situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattaway-Wendoronk, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The Regional Municipality of Niagara and Town of Grimsby stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. All right, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, just before we approve the agenda, I just want to make a couple of quick announcements. I just want to congratulate the Grimsby Peach Kings on finishing their season. Although they lost a couple of really tough games in overtime at the tournament in Guelph, they ended up coming fourth in Ontario, which is an amazing achievement. So in their 100th year of existence. And also this Friday and Saturday, May 19th and 20th, is the last hurrah for Grimsby Secondary School. It's finally, we're getting to it. And again, there's events on both Friday and Saturday night and Saturday during the day. So we're looking to a really great celebration. Now we're moving to approval of the agenda. Need a mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor Dunstall. Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor Dunstall. Resolved that the May 16th, 2022 council agenda be approved. All in favor? That's carried. All right, now we're moving to adoption of the previous minutes. Need a mover and seconder for adoption of the previous minutes. Moved by Councillor Dunstall, second by Councillor Cadwell. Moved by Councillor Dunstall, second by Councillor Cadwell. Resolved that the special council minutes of May 2nd, Committee of the Whole minutes of May 2nd, and council minutes of May 2nd be approved. All in favor? That's carried. All right, now we're moving to need a mover and seconder for the first reading of the bylaws. Moved by Councillor Frake, seconder Councillor Dunstall. Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor Dunstall. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaw 22-41 to 22-43 inclusive, and that be read. The same now be read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All right, we need a mover and seconder for second and third reading of the bylaws. Moved by Councillor Cadwell, second by Councillor Bothwell. Moved by Councillor Cadwell, second by Councillor Bothwell. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaws 22-41 to 22-43 inclusive, read a first time, now be read a second and third time, and finally passed, and that the mayor and town clerk do sign and seal the same and rule council to the contrary notwithstanding. All in favor? That's carried. All right, now we're moving to number 15, announcements. Any announcements from any other members of council? Councillor Dunstall.
Just for those out there that like golfing, the Grimsby and District Chamber of Commerce is having their golf tournament June 14th. And I believe again it's at Penn Lakes. And so if you're feeling spring in the air now, it's time to get out there and play a round of golf and join the chamber. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dunstall. I know Councillor Frake and myself, and I think Regional Councillor Furtick are heading out for it. So we're looking forward to that. Any further announcements? Seeing none, before we move into closed, I'll read the electronic participation. Closed session statement declaration. Good evening, members of council. Before we begin the closed session, all members are reminded that any discussions in closed are to remain confidential as per our procedural bylaw and our code of conduct for the council of the town of Grimsby. Before we begin, I need each member that is attending electronically to confirm the following: that you understand that matters are to remain confidential, confirm that no one else is present with you, confirm that no one else can hear this closed session, confirm that you are not using any electronic devices other than your tablet or computer for the purpose of this video conferencing only, and confirm that you are not recording this portion of the meeting. If you acknowledge all of the above, please reply with "I understand" and confirm to all the statements. Councillor Bothwell?
I understand and confirm to all the statements.
Councillor Ritchie?
Understand and confirm to all the statements.
Councillor Sharp?
I understand and confirm to all except the electronic devices.
Councillor Vane?
I understand and confirm to all the statements.
All right, now we need a mover and seconder for the resolution to go into closed. Moved by Councillor Vardy, need a seconder. Councillor Dunstall. Moved by Councillor Vardy, second by Councillor Dunstall. Resolved that council meet in closed session under section 2392B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, specifically regarding personal matters about an identifiable individual on a human resources matter. All in favor to go into closed? All right, that's carried, so we're now moving into closed. right, welcome back to the public. We are back in open session now. Need a mover and seconder. Well, I have a mover and seconder, sorry. Moved by Councillor Sharp, second by Councillor Cadwell. Resolved that the update provided in closed session be received and that staff proceed with the direction provided in closed session. All in favor? That's carried. All right, need a mover and seconder for Bylaw 22-44. First reading. Moved by Councillor Cadwell. Second, Councillor Dunstall. Moved by Councillor Cadwell, second by Councillor Dunstall. Resolved that leave be given to introduce Bylaw 22-44 and that same now be read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. Need a mover and seconder for the second and third reading. Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor Bothwell. Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor Bothwell. Resolved that leave be given to introduce Bylaw 22-44 read a first time, now be read a second and third time, finally passed, and the mayor and town clerk do sign and seal the same and rule council to the contrary notwithstanding. All in favor? That's carried. Meeting is adjourned. Good night, everyone.